Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I'm Debbie Howard with Senior Living Smart, and today I am joined by Tripp Higgins, who is the Chief Revenue Officer of MyLifeSite, a premier online resource empowering families to make informed decisions about life plan retirement communities and other senior living options. With deep expertise in the financial, social, and emotional benefits of retirement living, Tripp has become a trusted authority in the field. His insights and thought leadership have been recognized in prominent outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, where his expertise in the evolving senior living landscape has been showcased. Tripp, and I know this personally, is very passionate about helping individuals understand the options and opportunities that retirement living communities offer for living, enjoying, and celebrating life. So welcome, Tripp.
Thank you, Debbie. What an honor it is to be on your podcast and be face to face with you. It is always a pleasure.
Oh, I've been wanting to get you on for quite some time and so glad we were able to align our very busy schedules. I know when I think of Tripp, I think of MoneyGauge, but MoneyGauge is really one of the products of MyLifeSite. So that might be a really good place to start. I'm probably not alone in making that kind of comparison, but why don't you give us an overview of MyLifeSite, and then we can dig in and probably spend a little bit more time on the MoneyGauge tool.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it. And MyLifeSite is probably familiar to a lot of people. Brad Breeding started it, I think, closer to 12 years ago from his time as a financial advisor and recognizing a need for third-party information, unbiased takes on how to start your senior living journey. So it has evolved over time, and I happened to come on board a little more than 4 years ago, just at the beginning of MoneyGauge, which, with my experience from the sales side of a community, I recognize that as an unbelievable tool that as we grow and as we refine with customers' needs, that has certainly been one of my primary focuses. But we also have our resource library of articles that tie together with our blog, and we then have our website that many communities have chosen to highlight their communities, as well as a financial calculator that is MoneyGauge, but on a level of a one-to-one relationship with a prospect.
Yeah, and that's the hot topic, right? Financial qualification is the greatest interest point. We see that in what we do anytime that we have for a client blogs about how to pay for senior living or a downloadable premium guide. And certainly from the VSA kind of chatbot experience, the number one most clicked on kind of CTA is get pricing. And when people are buying senior living, whether that's a rental kind of needs-based for profit or whether it's an investment like a life plan or CCRC, they're concerned about affordability, not outliving their money, and they've never really bought this product before. So there really isn't a lot of information about how much should it cost and what are some of the financial resources that I may not be aware of that I might qualify for. And so I think that's a good place to start. So what do you see on your end, since you really help families every day qualify and help find that right solution?
Yes, it is fascinating. And to quote one of your sayings of people want either more or better leads, but ultimately they want more better leads. And how do you find that quality? So what we had found with the hundreds of thousands of people that had visited the MyLifeSite website was obviously that financial question, can I afford it? But usually it's a question they don't like to ask up front. So they usually handle it by just not engaging with any of your mailers. And that's, I think, why we see that 3% penetration rate with age and income qualified people.
Yeah.
So MoneyGauge allows them to take control of that situation and be able to, with a few questions that are then backed up by our actuarial tables, economic assumptions, and a robust calculation that, by the way, is agnostic. So it doesn't necessarily care if your entry fee or whether you're rental or whether you're IL, AL, it'll work for anybody. And what it does is it engages a prospect and builds confidence that we don't see at the beginning of a sales cycle. And it allows that sort of MQL to SQL to now become a MoneyGauge FQL, or financially qualified lead.
Oh, I like that. An FQL. All right. You drop that in. I really like that. And I mean, it's hard to get those FQLs, right? So senior living is considered housing. So as we're developing from a marketing perspective, a lot of our paid ads campaigns and our social campaigns, we are not allowed to target people at a certain income level because it's considered to be discrimination. And so oftentimes I think the communities and even some clients are like, why do we get so many financially unqualified leads? Google really doesn't understand where senior living fits in. And so they fit it into housing. They tell you cannot qualify based on age or income. And so you're casting a wide net and you're getting a lot of boots in that net. And you are getting a lot of leads that have intent, have interest, have need, have urgency. But the ability of marketing on the front end to do a lot of that segmentation and qualification doesn't happen until after they convert.
Yes, and you are brilliant. I am always in awe when you start talking about how to best market. It is fantastic. I am just like love to be sitting in the seats. Just where's my popcorn? Listen to you go. It's amazing. And what we've found with MoneyGauge too is with people engaging with that tool. Like this year, we'll have probably close to 240,000 assessments.
Wow.
And of that, we're averaging with our, I guess, close to 250 active customers. A lot of them are coming on board here in the next quarter, that 30% of those assessments will become a prospect by giving their name. And then
Yeah.
from that, we're finding on average about 55% of them see some sort of affordability.
Okay.
So it allows a salesperson to know where do you start on that list? Because normally they'll have a list of names and they'll have to start from the top, the middle, or the bottom, but they really don't have an idea of what that person might have in terms of resources or ability to afford. They were on a list,
Yeah.
but what we're finding is the engagement of MoneyGauge is amazing, and that allows a salesperson to define where they start, and they're starting with a tremendous amount of knowledge as to what a home value might be, what assets are, what income is, and they see immediately where that prospect might fit the most.
Yeah.
Because one of those silent killers of a community is those people that feel their community poor. And
Yeah.
that's what they talk about. And you're like, oh, hold on. You had exercise class today. You were at the symphony yesterday. You had a great meal. It's interesting how to get the best people for your community.
And so, can people engage with your tool anonymously? And is it a choice to share that information, or are they forced up front before they can do anything to put in their personal information?
So we have the product set up where each community can decide as to whether they want to have someone take an assessment and get the result without
Hmm.
giving their name, or after they have given that financial information, ask for their information, and in return, we give them that answer that they're all looking for as to can I afford it? What does it look like? The majority of our customers gate it
Yeah.
or have that information asked for by the client.
Hmm.
So we found that's to be the most successful in terms of qualifying leads and getting the kind of traction that each community, each salesperson is starving for.
Yeah. It's so interesting. You talk about giving people confidence, right? And really empowering them to self discover. And I was listening to a podcast because I love listening to podcasts, and it talked about consumer behavior and why tools like MoneyGauge, chatbots, AI, all of that, why is that so popular? And the interesting thing was, it was because it was not judgmental. That was the number one motivation for using the tools. They felt like if they were talking to somebody and they had to share that very personal information about what's your income and what's your income producing assets and how much is your home worth and all of that, it feels just more vulnerable and almost judgmental in some way. Do I have enough? Are they going to think I have enough? Am I going to qualify? Whereas engaging with these tools really takes that away. So I wonder if you have experienced that your tool overcomes some of that hesitancy.
Absolutely. And that is really well put because it is absolutely that. And anybody that's been in a community and had to try to ask those questions, it's usually avoided, and it is uncomfortable, and it is
Yeah,
not a fun conversation to have.
yeah,
Certainly, as someone has worked their whole career, raised families, and are now in your sales office, and you're judging them a little bit on whether or not they have enough to move into your community. Yeah, it's a hard sort of situation in general, and usually it's happening at the end of a sales cycle
yeah,
where then you're finding out after you've spent 3 years with that prospect.
yeah,
Yeah. So we've found MoneyGauge is a great engagement that works directly with that subconscious brain.
yeah,
That we've talked about chatbots and pricing being that button that everybody presses. And then when they're given an entry fee or a rental monthly service rate, they look at it and their brain does not have something to relate it to. So
right.
it looks super expensive. And the subconscious brain goes, no. And it makes that decision well before someone has their conscious brain going, wait a second, I need to learn more about what exactly is included in all of that. And yeah,
Yeah.
and
That,
getting through that subconscious to the conscious brain.
that's my biggest concern with these bots that have a get pricing button. And the conversion is forced. You're not going to get any information till you put your contact information in. And then what we find with our clients is 90% of the engagements happen with that interest, but then 90% of people click the self-disqualify button. So after the pricing is revealed, they immediately, their subconscious goes, oh no, and they click cannot afford. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, they're just pushing those leads into the CRM anyway. And then the sales team gets frustrated because, like, why did you push a lead in who was not qualified? But it's also frustrating for the prospect, right? Because we didn't have a chance to sell value. We didn't have an opportunity to provide any context or any solutions to that pain.
It is so true. And when you can, and we've worked with a lot of the chatbots and allowing a MoneyGauge link to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, it's great.
And when they do find, and that prospect goes through our 7 to 8 questions, there is a greater conversion because now they see a green or a yellow gauge.
Yeah.
And I connect it back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where once they see a positive response, their brain now all of a sudden knows, well, food, shelter, and safety are taken care of. I can now venture into that self-actualization stage of, okay, how do I fit in here? What do I bring? And certainly a great salesperson will quickly find a talent of that prospect, magnify that, with how that will be a part of their journey and their contribution to the community.
That's a great point. There's so much talk, and I'm sure you see it all over LinkedIn of people talking about empathetic selling and not being transactional. But I think up front at the very beginning of the journey for the prospect, it is pretty transactional. Like they're trying to figure out, okay, location. Is it close to me? Am I going to be able to visit? Is my mom or dad going to be close to their doctors and friends and spiritual life that's important to them? So we always start with location. And then we get into affordability. Okay, it's the right location. Can I afford it? And then once you get past that, then you get into a sense of belonging with that community and that fit, and you get into lifestyle and amenities and socialization and all of those more emotional selling points. But I think at the front end, people are pretty transactional because they're trying to narrow down their choices.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And what we found is MoneyGauge helps that be an authentic part of the journey where it isn't forced. It isn't 50 questions. Here's our confidential data application. Fill this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the prospect does have control over that. They're usually doing it in the comfort of their own home. We've heard all those stories of a car dealership. Hey, buy your car in your underwear. And I think it does help that prospect start the journey in a meaningful way. And the salesperson benefits a great deal from the confidence of a prospect translates into the confidence of a salesperson. And
Yeah.
based on the results, they can tailor their tours to, is it the one bedrooms we're starting with, or can we start with our most expensive villas? Or yeah, and that it's a fun process to watch. And when you have that journey be part of a confident prospect and a confident salesperson, success is the result.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about the setup and how you establish that financial qualification, because it's going to have to change. Every single client probably has a different definition of their qualification. So tell us a little bit about like how you engage with operators. How do you set it up for each location? Because some are metro and some are rural and some might be affordable and some might be luxury. What does that process look like?
I call that our finding our financial risk tolerance of each community. And
Yeah.
the questions we ask are age, and that connects to a life table. So if it's a 75-year-old, are we looking at 20 years in that community? Or does that community look at, we're only looking for 5 years of affordability? So we can adjust the life tables to match what the community needs. Next, we then ask about home value, a primary asset. If it's an entry fee model that is looking at whether or not it can cover the entry fee.
Yep.
And we'll ask about assets, and we'll then ask about income from Social Security and or pension, or if there are other sources through rentals or other properties. And then we can also include long-term care insurance. And each one of those is then connected to an economic assumption. What might your earnings be of your assets? That would be a combination of savings, stocks, bonds, or other investments. We then connect, if it's a full continuum of care, we have number of years in IL, and then we'll look at number of years in AL or skilled. Or if it's AL and memory, we can adjust there. And then on top of all of that, having those economic assumptions and looking at what that prospect's financial picture might look like 10 years or 12 years or 15 years down the road, we then have the ability to then connect it to what we call our custom gauge parameter. So what does green mean on the gauge? Is that they have $1 left at the end of their actuarial life, or that they have 3.5 times that final year cash flow deficit? So I sometimes use the example of if in the final year, and know that the vast majority of prospects will run a deficit moving into a community or even living at home. No one's Social Security necessarily covers all of their expenses,
Right.
or Social Security and pension. There has to be some sort of investment connected to it. But let's say, for example, they have a $100,000 deficit in their final year, and that might be year 6 for some communities or year 15 for others. We are looking at then, to be a green, you need to have 3.5 times that. So you need to have 350,000 left, because people 50% of the time will outlive that actuarial prediction, 50% won't. So that's where we can be very specific with each community, and even within large organizations that might have 20 or more communities, each one has a different financial risk tolerance based on whether they're rural or in a populated metro area, whether they're luxury or not. MoneyGauge doesn't care. We can set it up to match each community's financial risk tolerance, which is then fantastic. And quickly, with testing, the salespeople in the organization start to trust the results, and we can do a lot to then hopefully match or be very close to what they might use as a financial qualifier. And in many cases, we're really helping communities truly understand exactly what type of risk they are taking and whether or not they are possibly too conservative. They start to see occupancy issues because they're saying no to a lot of people that possibly could afford it,
Yep.
or others that possibly should be a little bit more risk averse and tighten those requirements up a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. And does your data, I love data, right? It all comes down to that. So what does your data tell us about when people engage with this kind of tool? Can you tell if it's like the first time website visitor that just wants to be transactional and say, look, can I afford this or not? I got to get on with my day. I'm looking at 10 communities and this is going to be an important tool for me. Do you find it engage more on follow-up visits, second and third website visits? Is it more post-tour where maybe they have seen the value and just want to confirm? Or is it part of the nurturing process where maybe they've converted on something else but then come back because it remains a pressing concern?
Sure. Can I say all the above?
Yeah.
What we have found, and interesting enough, we'll be introducing here pretty soon our lead attribution connections. This is something exciting, and we can have a whole podcast about what that extra layer of information will help tell.
Yeah.
But what we found, so if a community that's started with us, they might see as many as 50% of the MoneyGauge assessments are already leads in their system, but in many cases they're lost leads, or they've been in the system for a while and they haven't answered the last few invites that they've gotten. But as we know in senior living, sometimes there's an event, there's some driver that makes the community more appealing or certainly more relevant at the time.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of that re-engagement, which is fantastic because in many cases, the community didn't have financial information on that person, or they might have had pretty reliable financial information from a purchase list, but that lead didn't know that they were age and income qualified.
Right.
So this helps them connect to that. And then we can see in some cases upwards to 50% of the assessments coming in are brand new to the CRM in the community. They weren't part of a purchased list. They weren't already in the system. They are truly brand new,
Yeah.
which is fascinating. And then another layer of that is we've encouraged most of our communities, if they are asking for that personal information to get the results, to turn on our zip code field, making it anonymous. We've seen upwards, and this is a pretty strong number, 80% of those assessments will fill out that contact form and include a zip code. And then you can start to see where your prospects or assessments are coming from.
Yeah.
And that's extremely powerful. Yeah. As an example, there's a community doing an expansion, and their board has said, we really want to concentrate on our primary zip code that our facility is in. And you look at all the numbers, and they should have the vast majority of their people living in the community should come from that zip code. However, what we found, and just looking at the numbers last month, they had 124 financially qualified prospects, which is a fantastic number.
Yeah.
Amazing. But what we found is only 3 of those came from their primary zip code. And then the rest of the 121, not more than 2 came from the same zip code. So they all over the country. It was amazing to watch. And as more and more communities become aware, and we make them aware of and show them how to use the data that's coming from each assessment, regardless of whether they gave their name or not, you have some really valuable data as to where to emphasize a digital spend, how do you expense a certain area, or that MoneyGauge doesn't necessarily just need to live on your website. And your team is great at this, is how do you send it out in a text, in an email, in a mailer, Facebook stories on a couple that didn't think they could afford it, that saw the MoneyGauge assessment, took it, and then came in with a deposit. Yeah, one of our newer communities, the first day MoneyGauge went up live, I think we might have been at Smash, and they came to me and they're saying, our first lead came in today with the assessment printed out and said, what's my next step?
I bet anybody who gets a green, they're going to come in with that golden ticket. Like, I can do this. So it does really give them confidence. And I do agree that these kinds of tools, so many people just stick them as a widget on the website, but where we find the real value, pin them to your Facebook pages, put them in your Google business profile, integrate them into your email follow-up and SMS campaigns, because people are going to engage with this type of tool throughout their journey. So it's not just a new lead generator. And I really love about the cold leads, because I feel like that's where all good leads go to die. And nobody's working them. And so if it's something as we do a stay in touch program, which basically enrolls all the cold and lost but not disqualified leads into a re-engagement campaign, multi-step, lots of branching logic. But we see people re-engaging and coming back to becoming marketing qualified, sales qualified, and for you, financially qualified. I love that other definition, and actually moving in out of the cold and lost leads. But you have to be intentional and give them reasons to re-engage and give them something new. And that's, I think, the use of tools like this is so important.
I agree. And that your process of creating authentic reasons for a prospect to want to follow up, or a salesperson to follow up with a prospect, is always brilliant. And it is the most natural process.
Yeah.
We love helping people help people. And you are fantastic at it. And your whole group is.
Yeah, we just, because we've been in the industry, right? We've sat in their chair, we've sold to families. It's hard. It's the hardest thing to have so many new leads coming at you from all different directions. So you're so buried in just trying to keep your head above water on new leads. And everyone's looking at your speed to lead. And there's so much more data and accountability now. And having the time to then go and try to re-engage cold and lost leads, it is a little bit of a needle in a haystack, which is why automating lead nurturing and follow-up and re-engagement is an always-on machine that's not going to let people flow through the cracks. So we love having MoneyGauge as another tool and another reason to have people come back to our client.
Yeah, it is fun to watch, especially when you're coordinating that process.
Yeah.
You're intentional with how you are reaching out with purpose to each prospect. It is awesome. And I found, and when I started in senior living, the community, little did I know, this was my first foray into senior living, we were at 60% occupancy.
Yeah.
And we had just opened up about a year and a half ago. I was the 5th marketing director.
Yeah.
And I just thought Ziegler and Bank of New York visited you every month. And I was just, yeah, Dan Herman. I was like, okay, Dan, we're going to dinner this time. Then I quickly realized, like, oh no, that's not normal. Yeah. And what I found within the greater community is everyone thought it was too expensive, or they had heard it was too
Yeah.
expensive. Yeah. And I'd always say, oh, who told you? Was it your barber's friend's gardener, or was it the bus driver for your grandkids? Who
Yeah.
told you? And being able to break that down and create the cocktail conversation that changed from, oh, it's super expensive to, wow, it's more affordable than we thought.
Yeah.
It's huge. And it takes coordinated campaigns that you put together to help reshape that paradigm of thought within that primary market area to go, okay, how do
Yeah.
we start engaging people in a meaningful way, get through the barrier of financial affordability, that, invisible wall, and then get them into your community to showcase what makes you special.
Yeah. They just
So,
need context and education. Some people are just not going to qualify. They're already on Medicaid. We don't have a waiver program. And so I would think that, and I believe that your tool has that red, yellow, green. And so it'd be easy to segment people out to say, okay, if they're red, there's probably, unfortunately, we probably don't have a program for them, but at least we can automate a thank you, leave them with a good impression of the community, maybe offer them contacts with the area agency on aging or the ombudsman so that they don't feel like they've just been disqualified in a way that is unfeeling. The yellow ones probably just need a follow-up around, let's talk about the home value and how that equity can help, or we can help you with long-term care insurance conversion, getting you the veterans benefit with a bridge loan until the house is sold. There's so many vehicles that people just don't know about. I know with those bots, a lot of those VSA type tools, we just enroll them. If they self-disqualify, we enroll them into a really nice follow-up nurturing campaign. And every month we see people moving in to our clients' communities who had self-disqualified using the bot. But I
right.
feel badly for people who are not doing that, who are just pushing them into the CRM. Salesperson's going to move them to cold or lost and disqualified. And there are probably a percentage of people that are still viable, but you've eliminated them too soon.
And within our system too, you can customize every message. And you've been great at finding the right language to use
Yeah.
within that neighborhood, that area of the country. Everybody has their verbiage, and you can do exactly what you were talking about, and you have done it,
Yeah.
which is great. And in many cases, the salesperson can still follow up with that red. It more than likely just isn't their first call of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can save their energy and build it up with great calls, and then be able to concentrate and maybe see if someone filled out the assessment incorrectly, or they forgot to add that $1 million that they have in a trust. You're like, oh, let's count that.
Yeah, let's
Uh,
do that.
yeah,
Sometimes they just forget to put the numbers in. They forget to put in, like you said, a social security check or a
yeah,
pension.
it
And
can
it's
happen.
it
We
does happen.
we find that about 5% of the time of all of our assessments, somebody will either miss a question or not represent the total worth of their
Yeah.
estate. Yeah, which is fine. And those numbers, we're constantly trying to improve those, but those are pretty good.
Yeah. And it's probably because they feel like if they tell you all the money they have, you'll charge them more.
Potentially. We should work on our language there, maybe, Julie.
This will not affect the price of the.
That's our next goal. Yeah.
I love the fact that you're doing attribution modeling and geographic because that is so important. What other kind of data or insights would somebody expect from using your MoneyGauge tool?
You know, with AI now, we can do a lot to look at the numbers and how to potentially future project. So if a community is looking at within the month or last 6 months to look at the leads they're bringing in and what the average home value is, assets, income, if they are thinking of an expansion, they've got a great database now of what do we need to be building? And
Yeah,
let's not just base this off of a hunch. Let's look at what is affordable within our primary market area and those that are engaging with our tool. And the numbers are great enough where it's meaningful.
yeah,
So you can look at last month, we had of 100 leads, we had 50 of them that could afford every apartment. And then we had 25 that couldn't afford anything, and the other 25% could only afford the studio. So you're like, okay, let's figure out how do we find the middle market in there? Is there a
yeah.
middle market or not? And you can start to unravel and open up to gain insight there. There was
That's really valuable. So valuable information to, because we've had a lot of clients where they overbuilt studios. All the expensive units were taken and I got 28 studios I have to sell. So to be able to have this kind of database of here's a group of people that I know are financially qualified for our studio, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a great early on in that, a great example of a community that found MoneyGauge isn't working. Really? Because you've gotten 3,000 assessments in the last 4 months. I think it's working.
Yeah.
Like you've got a lot of prospects. You had a 40% conversion rate, but they weren't getting a lot of people that could afford it. And I said, okay, let's look at the data a little bit. And you look at the ages were in the right spot. Home values were fantastic, maybe in the 800 to $1 million range, but their income was low, Social Security. So it's maybe 24,000 to 30,000 a year.
Yeah.
And the average savings was 100,000. I was like, ooh, with what the monthly service rate is, unfortunately, they are running out of money pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And let's look at those zip codes and then let's compare those zip codes to what those average home values are, assets. And we quickly found out that those neighborhoods had been gentrified. So all of a sudden they bought the house for 50,000 and now it's worth 800, and that they needed to go north of the community to find those zip codes that had not only the home value, but also the assets to back up the monthly service rate. And once they did that, all of a sudden the approval rates went up and they were finding their market.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time where if you start to look at the data in a holistic 10,000-foot view, you can see some trends.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of assumptions going on that really the data can challenge those assumptions and help them find hidden markets that maybe they were not aware of before.
That's happening every day. And we're learning more and more from the system and finding ways that can help the sales teams, the marketing teams, the agencies be more precise and ultimately spend money in a more meaningful way. Sort of the Brad Pitt movie Moneyball, right? This is kind of,
Right.
yeah, Money
Yeah.
Gauge, Moneyball. I don't know.
Oh, I like that. You're on fire today. So, a quick question about, are you asking questions about level of care? Which level of care are you most interested in? Because I would think somebody who's 99 years old, who's looking for memory care, who is red, may not need assets for 3+ years, but they might want to have a really great 1 year in a luxury, amazing memory care program. So, what's the correlation between level of care and financial resources?
That's a great question. And it's been something I've talked about for the last couple of years, and we're really gaining some traction on communities getting a second link and having it focus on their health center. So with that assisted living and progression of care from that standpoint. The great thing with MoneyGauge is we have the ability to add questions that can be specific to those situations, maybe create some options that somebody didn't think of.
Yeah.
So that is a really so powerful play And certainly in working friendly with other products, from whether it's Further,
Right.
it's Rubric, we found a lot of people that disqualified themselves after taking a Rubric assessment. When you put a MoneyGauge link at the end of their report, you can engage with that group and try to get some of those people back. Or the way that it can work with your tour and Hoyle's product, where once you figured out what they can afford, you can now create a your tour based on those type of units and whatever else you might have gathered from your conversation with that prospect.
Yeah, I love that, using multiple tools. And, I think so much of what's missing is getting reporting back from the CRM. Because at the end of the day, what we really want to know is what's converting and to what level of care, and is it equating in any way to an increased length of stay or reducing the reliance on third-party aggregators? Because there's always marketing goals and lead gen goals, but even above that, there are business goals, right? And so much of those business goals are extending length of stay, reducing reliance on third-party aggregators, but without getting that information back from the CRM to find out of your leads that are generated, how many tour deposited and moved in. Because at the end of the day, what people are paying us to do, sure, they like leads and all this stuff, but they really want tours, deposits, and move-ins. So have you been able to, I think we did it once using HubSpot as the connector, because
Right.
we do have bilateral with most of the senior living CRMs, but have you been able to get that kind of results feedback loop from those endpoints?
It's been a little harder for us to get that. We have partnered with Senior ROI's Validify product,
Oh, I love that.
which has been fantastic in getting that view, matching it up with MoneyGauge results and going, okay, the numbers that we're getting from that last lead list are matching up with the MoneyGauge assessments, to learning from MoneyGauge to be able to better purchase that next list, to then understanding the details you can get from, to who are the groups that love purple cows with yellow polka dots, or those that are big cat fans. It's amazing when you look at using tools that are out there and how together you are so much stronger. And then having a great marketing firm that can put that together and customize solutions.
It's a beautiful thing when it all comes
It is
together.
really, you love it. I think that's Hannibal Smith, right? 18. You gotta love
That's
it when a
right.
plan comes together.
That's right. Trip, it has been so wonderful to talk to you. I really enjoyed this conversation. If people want to reach out and learn more or get a demo, I'm not sure if you do pilots or trials or anything like that, but what's the best way for people to learn more?
Yeah, certainly our website, mylifesite.net, or a direct email or text to me at trip@mylifesite.net, or my cell 716-200-3564. I find that I have a meeting link that when people find it, it's a beautiful thing, because they
Yeah.
quickly get a meeting scheduled on the books, and a 15-minute conversation can quickly turn into an hour.
Absolutely. We will have all of that in the show notes. We'll also have a link to your LinkedIn profile, because I know you're very active there as well. And thank you so much for stopping by to share your senior living marketing perspectives with us.
Oh, you're welcome, Debbie, and what a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.